Hey folks, or ahoy mateys, or whatever, Nathan here. Welcome to another of our content overviews for a Tiny Epic series game. This time we're taking a look at Tiny Epic Pirates. And in this case, that means we have a few things that we're going to be taking a look at. So we have a playmat you can see behind here. It's going to kind of be our background throughout. We'll also raise up the camera a little bit, and eventually at the end of the video, take a look at what it looks like and what all the spaces entail here. But it will help us lay out some stuff as we're looking at the other components. We'll be looking at the base game in both its retail and deluxe versions. Deluxe does add a little mini expansion this time. We will then look at the expansion for the game that was crowdfunded at the same time, Curse of Amdiak. We'll be taking a look along with the big mat at some small player mats, which come in this box here that just says official game mats. And of course, we will look at the official eRaptor storage solution here, a storage box. So let's talk funding here. This one was funded in 2020 with a goal of $15,000. Instead, it raised $1,104,805. So another very successful Tiny Epic Kickstarter. For this one, you can get the P&P, the print and play version, for $10, the retail version of the base game, so no deluxe mini expansion, for $25, the deluxe version for $30, the deluxe version and the expansion for $40, 2 copies of the deluxe version for $55, 2 copies of the deluxe and the expansion for $75, the deluxe, the expansion, and the mats for $96, 10 copies of the deluxe version for $250, or the honorary producer pledge for $255. And while we're talking cost, you could get the big playmat, the sort of game area mat, for $30. And weirdly, for the official game mats over here, which are usually sold as that box of 4, you could get all 4 for $20, or just 1 for $7. Kind of weird. You could get a bundle of the area playmat and the player mats for $40. And as we will see, there's a couple of add-ons for some extra metal coins and for some skull dice. We will see that the metal coins were $12 for a pack of 52, and the skull dice were officially $10 for a pack of 3, but they decided to make it available to backers for $4. You just had to add them as you were backing. The price did jump back up in the Pledge Manager. So let's take a look at everything here, starting with the base game. So I'm going to zoom in way closer here so we can take a look at the game itself, and then we'll start looking at components and zoom out just a little bit. So our box, Tiny Epic Pirates. Never been a fan of that weird wheel as a C, but whatever, feels a little truncated to me. A game of high seas adventure by Scott Almes. Gamelin Games, now Tycoon Games. We'll talk more about that later in the video. So you have the Gamelin logo here, the stats as usual, players 1 to 4, time 30 to 60 minutes, ages 14 plus, logo and a character here. Essentially the same thing on the other side with different artwork there. We have a horizontal side that is just the logo. We have a vertical side here that has Tiny Epic Pirates, one of the captain characters, and then the Gamelin logo. And then the back, which is why I zoomed in, is going to tell us a bit more about the game. So, same stats again, logo again. Includes 7 ship minis. There's 4 player ones, 2 merchant ships, and then the Navy vessel. Content list, and we're going to look at all that. Sleeve recommendations, QR code, UPC, all that good stuff. And the Gamelin logo. What does it say for itself above the credits, Gamelin and legalese? In Tiny Epic Pirates, you helm a notorious pirate ship in the swashbuckling days of yore. Guide your ship and crew through the unforgiving seas in search of fame and fortune. Plunder settlements, trade booty on the black market, hire scurvy crew members, and avoid the ever-vigilant Royal Navy. Be the first pirate to bury 3 treasures, and you can declare yourself the most nefarious dread pirate of the 7 seas. And then, of course, what defines a Tiny Epic game? They always say kind of similar stuff. Here it's easy entry, high strategy, low downtime, short playtime, high replayability, and small box. Now, of course, we typically have sort of the standardized upgrades of component quality that we see in Tiny Epic games. So let's go ahead and hit all those at once, even the card ones here. So to have the box be 2mm thickness was a $30,000 stretch goal. To have the nice spot UV on it, ooh, and some interior printing and artwork here, at least on the top half, was the $60,000 stretch goal. In between at $45,000, that is when the card quality got upgraded. The cards got upgraded to 300 GSM or better, ivory core, linen finish, and rounded corners. As for the bottom of the box, just advertising as usual. Tiny Epic Tactics, Tiny Epic Mechs, Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, and Tiny Epic Zombies, at least on my copy. Later printings may have changed that around. So you got your rule book here, Tiny Epic Pirates, the Pirates code. And this is a game that basically has just two modes. There's a multiplayer mode and there is a dedicated solo mode. The solo mode is very fleshed out in this case, and it is true solo. If you want to play solo, you can play as just one pirate versus an AI pirate to fight against you. There's no need to do two-handed play like in, say, Tiny Epic Dungeons. So let's start talking large cards for the base game. The base game comes with 4 of these helm mats, and they are identical on this side. The game uses a rondelle system, basically, in terms of what you are able to do. So there's quite a few things going on here. You have a space for what are called surefire tokens that we will see soon, and a little bit about what they do, just kind of as a reminder, basically. You have spaces here where your meeples for your crew could go that give you different bonuses, or a repair area they could go when you are jostled, as it is called. You have a reminder here about basically their ship's complement, 1 captain up to 4 crew. If you're playing without the play mats that we're going to see, you basically would put them in a row kind of out to the side here, starting with the captain. But then basically, you have these little tokens that go in these spaces. They're going to be your order tokens, the different orders that you can give. And you're basically moving your captain around and around and around and around as it goes. And you can always skip this space. This is to hide out in a cove, basically. But if you don't want to just go to this one, you want to like jump over to this one and do that thing, you have to actually put one of your crew kind of in the way, and it allows you to leapfrog over. And you can do that as you go along. Once you leapfrog over one that's already been there from a previous turn, they would go into one of your stations down here, basically. But you're sort of manipulating your crew in order to get to the spaces you want to do the things you want. And the order of the orders will differ because they're randomly distributed. And then when you pass this line here, called the ship line, it causes the 2 merchant ships to sail, the navy ship to sail, and might get you some gold through extortion and maybe any other game effects tied to that. But these are all effectively the exact same thing. Every player will have one of these, unless you're using one of the playmats, in which case you won't actually need this because the playmat handles everything else. But on the other side, you have 4 unique solo pirates to fight against you, AI-driven pirates to go up against in the solo mode. Annabelle, Captain Jack, Madam Drake, and Blackbeard. And in this case, you have die rolls with little dice symbols here. They're going to determine where they're trying to go on the rondelle and what ship is going to do something, again, based on different spaces around the rondelle here. And it does differ across the different pirates. Some reminders here. We will find eventually that when an action is taken, a captain or crew might have a bonus action that can be taken. And in the case of the solo pirates, it's not on their crew cards or captain card, because this basically is their captain card. But they have a little list of symbols up at the top and little bonuses underneath that they can get. And we'll find that captain and crew cards have different dice symbols on them to indicate hits in combat. And in this case, up in the top right corner, they have the dice symbols for this solo captain. So these big cards here are either sort of half of you as the player pirate or half of the solo pirate. There is another half, though. The other half is basically this other set of 4 cards, which are the legend mats. Each player gets a legend mat, and you start as a sea dog, then work your way up to pirate, corsair, swashbuckler, buccaneer, and then dread pirate. This is as a little token is going up here that we will see in a bit. You get different bonuses as it goes up, including 1 extra crew member when you hit this level here with the little symbol on it, kind of like getting the extra rancher back in Tiny Epic Dinos. There's a space to put treasure tokens down here on the bottom to keep track of those, a little track going around to keep track of your gold. But one of the most important things that this will do is it sort of lets you level up as you play. As your legend token makes its way up this track, that level, pirate, corsair, whatever, is telling you how much movement you have without any bonuses and how many dice you roll in combat as well. So as you make a name for yourself and your legend is increasing, not only are you getting some bonuses along the way, including getting another member added to your crew, you're going to slowly become able to sail farther and hit harder. All these legend mats are the same for the human players. But again, on the other side, there's an adjective-driven, so to speak, solo pirate side. Adjective-driven in that that's what they're called: notorious, fearless, vengeful, and greedy. And they're set up with different abilities that relate to that descriptor. So again, a track for gold and whatnot up here, and the fact that when they hit the top of the track, they're able to bury one of their treasures. Again, burying 3 is the main win condition. When a 6 is rolled, remember going around the rondel, they're rolling a die to see what happens, but if you were eagle-eyed, you might have noticed there's only 5 spaces. Rolling a 6 causes this to rotate 1 space and then do whatever it says. And yes, this is some iconography to keep track of. They aren't too difficult to figure out, but there are some nice reference cards you can print out from Board Game Geek to help. Fan-made. In this case, plenty of other stuff on here. You got reminders of what happens when certain search tokens are flipped over because they don't do quite the same thing for the solo pirate as they do for a human. And you also have the fact that their levels are determined by how many treasures they've actually placed. They start as a sea dog with 1 movement and 2 dice in battle. And then when they become a pirate, when they bury their first treasure, it comes off of here and uncovers the next part. Now they move 2, have 2 dice in combat and 1 automatic hit. Take another one off when they bury their second treasure. Now they're a buccaneer. 3 movement, 3 dice in combat. And then you take the third one off. They win. They're the Dread Pirate. You've lost. The last of the big cards, which has this nice artwork here on the back, is going to be your market card. And I'll just hold this up because it just seems weird putting it on the table when there's just one of these things to look at here. But basically, you're going to have 4 different types of booty that can be traded. And depending on which slot they're in, as we will see eventually here, they're worth either 2 each, 3 each, 4 each, or 5 each in gold when you trade for them. Then you've got your Navy ship that's going to be prowling around when you cross that ship line as you go around your rondel. And how much it sails, how much movement it gets, depends on how many treasures the active player has buried, hence the reminder over here. And you're also going to be going up against those merchant ships. I mean, you're going to be trying to take them out. They're not really coming after you, but you could go after them, try to knock them out, try to take their booty, try to get some legend out of it, blah, 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 blah. You know, doing pirate stuff. And this is where you'll keep the cards representing which merchant ship is the orange little pirate ship miniature and which is the green. And just a reminder for each of them that they sail when they cross the ship line, first and then second and then third up here. And the merchants only move the 1. So again, they tend to cram a lot of information, including some reminders, onto these big cards. And I appreciate that. It keeps you from going back to the rulebook a lot. Next up for the big cards, we have map cards. And all the map cards are these larger cards. They all say Tiny Epic Pirates there on the back. And they're all kind of laid out like this, where you have sort of the ocean type area here, the sea that you can travel through, and then some pockets of land that may have different abilities associated with it. One of the key things in the game, again, is to bury your 3 treasures to try to win. And that requires being at a space where you can do that with the ability to do that, which we'll see when we see different ability tokens and things on your captain and your crew, but also having enough gold to bury, because you don't want to just bury a treasure chest with only 1 gold in it. What use is that? You want to bury your hoard. So once you get 12 gold, for instance, in this case, you could bury gold here. There are 5 different cards that have that 12 value. And then 7 cards that have a 13 value. And there are 4 cards that have no value anywhere because you can't bury on those cards. So a total of 16 that you're always going to play with, though they are randomized as you lay them out in a grid of 4x4. If you play with the expansion, as we will see, the grid expands. But a standard game just with the base game box is 4x4. Like so, right? So 4x4, all these weird little islands all over the place, made up by what's happening in the corners, all kind of connecting together. I'm going to go ahead and leave these out for now because a lot of the other stuff that we're going to see plays into things like the actions that you can take as the captain, and much of that will come down to what symbols are on different locations. So let's start looking at tokens. Each player gets a set of these order tokens. So we have a set for the red player, the yellow player, the black player, and the blue player. And all of these have little symbols here representing the wheel on the back. So how do these work? Well, again, a player will have a helm mat and a legend mat. And you're going to take these and randomize them at the beginning of the game and lay them out into each of these spaces on the helm mat. So every helm mat, say avoid the cards sliding on top of other cards here, every helm mat will likely have a different randomized distribution of those symbols. They represent the actions you can take on this rondel method of carrying out actions. Every player gets 5 meeples in their color, 3 small and 2 large. Here they are all together. We'll just grab the blue ones. They all have this cool little pirate shape here, with the captain's hat for the large one, and sort of the little, scarf looking type thing here, or bandana type thing here for the small ones. You're going to start with one of your small ones sitting there on your legend mat. You don't get access to them until you reach that legend level. And while we're talking legends, let's note here that each player also gets a legend token in their color, and they all have a regular side and a bloody side, bloody indicating that there has been a mutiny at some point during the game, which can only happen once. We'll see that when we look at captain cards. So your legend counter will be down here, and as it moves up, when it hits this space, you do get access to that extra crew member. Or I guess I should say your deck hand. It's actually 4 deck hands and 1 captain, to be distinguished from crew, which are cards. While we're on the subject of the legend map, let's also note that everybody gets 3 treasure tokens in their color. Those are the ones you're going to try to bury to win the game. To have the legend token and the treasure tokens as screen printed and special shapes was a $150,000 stretch goal. And again, still talking about the legend mat, everybody has one little gold coin to indicate where their amount of gold is. Off is 0, then 1, all the way up to, again, 13, which will let you bury in one of those 13 spots. Having these be molded plastic was a stretch goal at $350,000, but when they hit $854,484, yes, an odd number, these became metal. And you can actually get an add-on pack of 52 more of these things, in case you want to use them actually for the amount that you have, not using them on a track or use them for some other game. They all have this little cross symbol on the back and a Gamelin face on a shield on the front. Anyway, back to your deck hands and your captains. So they are shaped as of a stretch goal at $75,000, and you're going to start with 1 each in each of these particular stations on your ship. These are your deck assignments here. Rigging, which is going to give you 1 extra movement. Cannons, which gives you 1 extra hit in battle. And this is extort, which gives you 1 gold if you have someone there when the ship line is passed. That is this line here as your captain's making its way around. And you can have multiple in the different positions here. It's just that you start with 1 in each. And if your ship gets jostled, whether in battle or by a storm or whatever, you end up putting deck hands into the repair area. And they can't go back from repair to a deck assignment, but they can go from repair to your wheel. So what's up with the wheel here? Well, you got your captain, who's going to start here. That symbol there is the hideout symbol. So maybe I'll put them like this. You'll start there, but if you land there and do the hideout action, you need to be in a space with a cove. That's going to be indicated with a little like anchor type symbol. So for example, this card up here in the corner has the cove that you can put your ship onto as it sort of goes in there to hide out. While you are hiding out, you can then totally reassign your deck hands, including if they're in repair. And no one can actually attack you while you are hiding out. Otherwise, on your turn, you must move your captain. And you will move your captain in a clockwise direction around the wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can always skip over 0 here. Again, as you make your way around, you'll be landing on different symbols, which are randomized based on those order tokens. And typically, you can only move 1 space. So on my turn, I can move here, which lets me use an attack action. But maybe I don't want to do an attack action this turn. Maybe instead I want to crew up. I want to get some new crew members here. Well, you can skip over spaces, but to do that, you need to grab one of your deck hands and place it into that space, which allows you to jump over them. So in this case, I would need to take 2 of them from wherever, even repair, and now I've covered up these spaces, so on my first turn, I could actually jump over them and land here and be able to use the crew up action. And as you make your way around, you're going to be doing that as you go, And when you reach one that was already there from a previous turn, you take them off and put them into one of the deck assignments. But essentially, you're using the rondelle to choose your actions, but you're managing your crew and where they are, your deck hands and where they are, because you're going to want some bonuses, but you also need them to more quickly move around here. But if you do move all the way around across that ship line, yes, with the little swirl symbol, you'll get the 1 gold if you got somebody in extort, or for however many are in extort. But this causes merchant ships and the Navy ship, as we will see, to sail. So let's look at the other actions real quick and how they fit within the core of the game. We're not going to spend too much time on it. This is not a how to play video, but I think it's important to understand at least some of these basics. So again, we know about hiding out at a cove. Attack lets you attack. We'll look at how that works later, but you will be rolling dice to do it. So let's look at the dice. You get a set of 3 really cool looking dice here. This sort of black with the orangish pips, kind of a marble texture to it. Having these be rounded edges and black with gold pips was the $100,000 stretch goal. And there was some controversy because they actually showed another type of dice at one point that really weren't practical for gameplay purposes, so they switched to these, and some people were kind of annoyed. So what they did was at the $1 million stretch goal, they went ahead and made an add-on available, a paid add-on, that was $4 during the campaign, but $10 after, to get 3 of these kind of impractical skull dice. They have a skull face for the 2 where the 2 dots are the eyes, and they have these weird sort of bony protrusions on the corners. They roll okay, but not as well as the regular dice. But you know what? Since we are talking about attacking, maybe it's time to talk about captains and crew. The base game comes with 4 double-sided captain cards. We have Captain Baron von Hook, Captain Sing Vane, Captain Vera Locke, and Captain Francisco de Guerra, but if you take these in the same order and flip them over, there is a different captain on each side. Captain Morgan Whitecloud, Captain Carmen Rogue, Captain Magnus Bolt, and Captain Windy Bird. And these captain cards, everybody's going to have one dealt out randomly at the beginning of the game. You decide which side to put it on. If by chance you ever during the game want to flip it over to get access to the other captain that's available to you, you need to do a mutiny. That is when this will flip to its bloody side, and you'll flip your captain from one side to the other. That is actually something that can happen when you do the crew up action that we see with the crew face down here. But what these cards do is they give you bonus actions, including burying your treasure. So basically, when an action takes place from one of these symbols here, if that action has occurred and it's on one of your cards, there might be something off to the right-hand side here, and you can actually do these as bonus actions to go with it. In the base game for the captains, it always triggers on the search action. The first thing is also always to bury a treasure, and then they might have an attack or a plunder icon, again, for the base game. There's also little dice symbols up here. I mentioned attacking. When you attack, you are going to roll the dice. How many dice you roll is dependent upon your legend level. It's right here in this middle column, either 2 or 3 dice. When you roll those dice, you're looking for dice that match the numbers on your crew or captain. So for example, if I rolled 2 2s, that's 2 hits because those 2 2s match the 2 on my captain. Or I could get 2 hits out of a 1 and a 2, for example. You'll likewise also have crew cards that do something similar, but we'll look at them when we look at crew up. Suffice to say, they can do the same kind of thing. So again, if I had that captain, I'd rolled 2 2s, I would get 2 hits off of the captain, but also get 2 hits here off of Raina Rumor, because she also has a 2 on there. It's number of dice matching a symbol on a card per card. When you're attacking, you might also have these surefire tokens that look like a cannon. There's 12 in the game, 3 per player, maximum of 3 that you can have, and when you get them, you can stick them up in these slots here as a reminder that you have them, and basically you can spend one of those after rolling to switch one die to whatever face you want. It does not count as a separate die, though. It's just changing the one die. Having these be shaped and screen printed was the $250,000 stretch goal. Where are you and what are you going to be attacking? Well, that's where some different ships will come in. So first, let's pull some port tokens. At the beginning of the game, you're going to take these little port tokens that show a ship sailing and put them on 2 opposite corners, maybe here and here. And that represents those being the ports. And merchant ships will start at those ports and kind of go this way towards the other port. There is an orangish one. Might start over here. They always point toward the other port. And a greenish one, kind of baby poop green, has a nice space for a cube inside there. There's a big old Navy ship that can come after you. No places for cubes because it doesn't haul anything. And it'll start on one of the other corners that doesn't have a port and a merchant ship. So maybe down here. And then each player has a ship miniature in their own color. And yes, the masks and whatnot can be taken off for safekeeping. But the storage box that we'll see later from eRaptor is good at being able to store these without having to take those off. Each player will start at a cove, but let's just put a couple out here randomly. So we'll put maybe blue here and put, I don't know, red so it's easy to see here. If you're fighting a merchant ship, there will be a merchant ship there in your space if you're attacking them. And the merchant ships are represented by merchant ship cards. Those cards will be sitting out on your table somewhere underneath the little market card here, where it tells you which merchant ship is the orange one that's going to move first when it goes around the ship line, which one is represented by the green one that goes second, and then you got your symbols there indicating that they each can move one. But for those merchant cards that I'll have this back here, there are 11 of them. There are 3 that do 2 damage in battle, and if you defeat them, you get 2 gold. They're all identical looking here. Then as it gets darker and stormier behind it, we have 3 that are 4 damage cards that give you 4 gold and increase your legend level if you're playing a 1 to 2 player game rather than 3 or 4. Then we have one that does 6 damage, 3 copies of it as well, 6 gold if you defeat it, and in a 1 to 3 player game, you're going to crank up your legend level by defeating one of these. And then we have an attack value of 8 version, gives you 8 gold if defeated, and these raise your legend level in any game 1 to 4 players. And if these are out, then they just stay out, because the idea is that at the beginning of the game, you're going to take these and stack them with the 8 face down on the bottom, then 6, 4, 2. And at the beginning of the game, you'll draw 2 of these, put it by your market mat, and they'll represent the initial merchant ships in orange and green. Now, I should note, by the way, that before you actually do anything on the rondel, you do get to move. And you'll move up to whatever your sailing value is. You may get a +1 from someone in rigging, and again, that is determined by your legend level. Move 1, 2, 3, or 4 on your turn. So if these guys had been on separate spaces, you could have moved, but it is orthogonal movement. So 1, 2, or whatever. Then we carry out an attack if we're doing that attack action. And say we're attacking that merchant ship there. Again, you're going to roll those dice, match the dice results to whatever's on your crew and captain card to determine how many hits you get. And you might get some automatic hits, say, from someone in cannons. And then you compare the damage you deal to the damage dealt by the merchant, which again is on their card. You are going to gain whatever reward was on that card, whatever gold was on the card, but also gain whatever booty is on that ship. And then the ship gets placed at the port furthest from you. So in this case, it'd be over here with the green one. Wait a second, what about booty? Wow, that sounded kind of wrong. We will soon see the plunder and trading actions and whatnot. Suffice to say, there's a bag full of cubes here that we're going to use to represent different booty, different goods that ships might be carrying. Suffice to say, for now, if you defeat a merchant ship, you can take its booty. You can fit 3 onto your ship at any given time. 1 in the back, 1 in the middle, 1 in the front. We'll see it in a little bit here visually. But if you are taking one and you're already full, you do have to either ditch one or just forego that reward. Either way, it gets removed from the ship. They get a new one randomly out of the bag and wind up at whatever the other port is. So that's taking on a merchant vessel. What if instead we were taking on a fellow pirate? Well, if you're playing against another pirate, you're both going to roll, and that is going to determine who wins, just whoever dealt the most damage. If you win, your legend level goes up by 1, as we see from this little symbol here of the damage on another ship, but you don't get any gold or any booty out of it. But what happens if you don't win? Well, if you don't win, you get quote-unquote jostled. And jostling can happen in multiple ways. This is one of the ways. If you get jostled, you must move one of your deck hands to repair. And first, it has to come from one of your deck assignments. And if there's none there because they're all in repair or on your wheel, you move one from the wheel. Another way that you can get jostled is by sailing into a card that has a storm on it. And if you have everybody already in repair, so there's no one to move to repair, you can't go into a storm at all. It's not allowed. It will auto jostle you. So if you can't be jostled, you can't go there. So if you lose to another pirate, you get jostled, but you do get one surefire token if you're defeated. The same basically applies if you get defeated by the merchant ship, you get jostled and you get one surefire token. If in either case you were to tie instead, if you tie, nobody's defeated, but you both get a surefire token. Or in the case of the merchant ship, you just get a surefire token. They don't use them at all. As for being attacked by the Navy, that can be ugly because there's no way to beat the Navy. If the Navy enters your space, which will typically happen because you went around past the ship line, and as the third thing to sail, it's the Navy ship sailing towards the active player, and if you're not hidden in a cove where they can't spot you, they are going to attack you. And if they attack you, there is no fighting back. You are immediately defeated, and every single deckhand, no matter where they are, goes into repair. And no, you do not get a surefire token from that loss. So that's attacking. Maybe instead you want to go to this with the little spyglass looking thing here. That is going to be the search action. The base game includes 20 search tokens. You won't use all 20 in the base game because there are only 16 map cards, but you'll need them if you're playing with the expansion here. And you're going to take one of these and place it face down on each map card. When you're on a space with one, you can use the search action to flip it over and take whatever it is. Some of them have a little exclamation point above it. In that case, that gives you something instantly, like these 4 possible tokens give you 2 gold. These 2 could give you 3 gold. These 3 could give you a surefire token, and these 3 could give you a random booty cube from the bag. The other ones are things that you can just sort of sit there and hold until you need to use them later by spending them. You have 4 of them that add 2 to your movement value for a turn, and 4 more that let you avoid being jostled by a storm. Then we have the crew up action with the face of a crew member there. It's also what the back of the cards look like. You start the game with a deck of crew cards and 3 out as a market. Anytime one gets recruited, that market immediately refills that space, and you can have up to 4 crew members on your staff, on your, crew. So let's talk crew cards. They all have this back. They all have, again, some type of action that when it happens triggers some kind of bonus for you, and some dice typically up at the top to help you in combat here. So we have our original group of cards that were meant to be in the base game. There are 16 of these. So we have Doc Blockley, Pale Pim, Silent Seamus, Taylor True North, Salty Pete, probably is online a lot, Sarah Silver, Chopper Donovan, Sally Suresight, Alice O'Malice, Lisa Legacy, love these names, Sydney Sweetwater, Buck Cannon, Betty Blunderbuss, Willow Watch, Quartermaster Quigley, Jolly Raj, and then we're back to the start again. There are actually more added by stretch goals. So at the $125,000 stretch goal, we got Raina Rumor and Jack Fuse Rogers. At $175,000, we got Lieutenant Flint and Eliza Lucky. At $225,000, we got Ursula Bain and Black-Eyed Brutus. Then at $275,000, we got Cutter Fang and Tina Trickshot. The next one going around is going to be your trade action. So trade has some different components as part of this, so let's take a look finally at those cubes. First off, they're all kept in this nice little bag with the logo on it. Having the logo on it was a $200,000 stretch goal. And they're just basically cubes. You have 10 cubes of each of 4 different types. Your purple there is rum. The gray here is gunpowder. The brown is coffee. And the tan is sugarcane. And these are what's going to be on your ship. So like the merchant ship. This merchant ship has some coffee on it now. And this blue ship, our blue ship, maybe it has some gunpowder and a couple crates of sugarcane or something there. And you can use the trade action to sell these resources. I would note that you are trading for gold. You don't actually buy the cubes. We'll see how you get those in the plunder action here in just a second. But you have to be on a location that actually has a market to trade. You do, the solo bot will not. So notice here, for example, this little hand symbol that matches the trade symbol, and it has a little picture of the little tan box with the sugarcane icon. And you have one over here for rum, and rum here, and so on. So if you're in the appropriate place, you can trade up to 3, the only amount of cubes you can have on your ship, of that resource. Well, to trade, you're going to check your market card. It's been sitting out for the game, and it's got one of each type of booty over here in the slots next to a gold value. You can trade for whatever the gold value is over here, up to 3. So let's say I want to take this. I'm at a location with sugarcane, so maybe here, and I have 2 tan cubes of sugarcane. I sell this by putting it back in the baggie. I get over here 3 times 2. I get 6 gold out of this. So maybe I go from 1 to 7 here. Keep moving the cards around, but 1 to 7. But then what happens is the economy changes, right? Now there's more supply of that in the markets. And what do we know? I'm an econ teacher. What do we know? Greater supply means lower price. So we move this, everything else gets pushed up, and it goes into the bottom rung, or stays there if it was already there. So the market will fluctuate, and you have to be pretty careful of when you decide to trade what, because that can make a substantial difference in terms of how much gold you're getting out of that trade. But again, you can only trade in a market that trades in that particular good. As to how you actually get those resources other than attacking a merchant vessel, you would need to be in a place that has one of these crossed swords kind of icons here that'll have 1 or 2 little boxes with question marks on them. So say I'm here, it's got that symbol. I can do a plunder action, the last of the action icons. If I do a plunder action, I take the number of randomized cubes out of that bag based on the number of symbols. So here it'd be 1, here it'd be 2. I just take them randomly, and again, I can always swap out if I'm full, but I can't have more than 3 on my ship at a time. So throughout the game, you are moving around, you are getting in combat and doing other things, usually combat, to try to raise your legend level to make you a better pirate with better abilities as you're playing. But your goal as you're traveling around is to do things that get you gold, whether it's defeating other ships or doing plunder actions and then turning around and doing trade actions to get gold. So you can keep your gold track going up to get to the point where you can go to a location, bury a treasure, and then do it 2 more times until you have buried 3 treasures first and win the game. And that actually wraps up all of the components to look at for the base game of Tiny Epic Pirates. But of course, as with any Tiny Epic game, at least prior to Tycoon taking over, starting with Tiny Epic Invincible, there is a deluxe version that includes some extra content, a little mini expansion in this case. So that's what we'll take a look at next. If you got yourself the deluxe copy of the game, then you've got the Crimson Silver expansion. This adds a few new things into the mix, some of which could just be used with the regular game, and some of which does require using all the components seen here, or at least the vast majority of the components seen here. So you have a little teeny tiny little rule book. And yes, there are specific solo rules as well, appreciated here. This provides a new type of resource here called Crimson Silver, and it is essentially wild. It can represent really any of the other 4 types. You can trade it for any type of booty that you wish, you can trade it with any other booty, and it always goes back to its own supply rather than into the bag. How you get your Crimson Silver depends on the mode here. So if we're playing solo, then when the solo pirate does a plunder and they are on or orthogonally adjacent to a map card with a fortress, which are these little things here, the floating fortresses, then they get 1 Crimson Silver. And then the fortress moves clockwise. The fortresses always start in the corners that don't have the 2 merchant ships, and then they move basically corner to corner along the map. And if the solo pirate attacks and they can't reach their target ship that's on the helm mat, then they check to see if they can reach a floating fortress instead, and if so, that becomes the new target. And then for the players, basically when you're on a map card with a fortress, not adjacent, but actually on the map card if you're a player, then when you perform one of your actions, you can choose an enhanced version rather than the regular version. So for plunder, you now gain 1 crimson silver. For attack, you attack the fortress as if it were a merchant ship. Its attack value, damage value, and rewards, gold and legend level, matches the highest of the face-up merchant cards underneath the market mat. If you win, you also gain a crimson silver. You can trade any single type of booty for its market value with the trade action. Crew up. Before taking a card, you may discard all 3 cards and replace them for free instead of paying the 1 gold. And then for search, you may gain the token from an adjacent orthogonal or diagonal map card. And at the end of a turn, when you use a fortress, it moves to the next clockwise corner map card, skipping it to the next one if there's already a fortress that's there, because there are 2 fortresses here. And that does trigger the Navy ship to sail as well as if you crossed the ship line. So the floating fortresses move, the Navy moves as well. The fortresses themselves are just these 2 little screen printed tokens here. They were screen printed as a stretch goal as of $300,000. The deluxe content, marked here with a little D with the crimson silver blade type symbol behind it here, also gives us 6 new crew cards. We have Sean Keystone, Ania Bones, I think it's Ania, right? Anila. Ben Seaworthy, Nicky Knuckles, Nando the Navigator, and then Isabel Surefire. Unsurprisingly, they're kind of tied into their thematic things. That's a new one here. During an attack, you get to reroll 1 die. The Navigator, that's a new one. You can't be jostled, at least not when you're sailing. And for Isabel, when you gain her as a crew member, you get a Surefire token immediately, but that's it. No regular bonus for her. Now, I would note here, by the way, as I step in from a different recording session on a different day, as I record this over multiple days and multiple sessions, that yes, the different crew members from the mini expansion actually were stretch goals. They weren't originally to be included. So at the $375,000 stretch goal, that's when we got Sean Keystone and Anila Bones. And then at $400,000, that's when we got Nicky Knuckles and Ben Seaworthy. And at $425,000, that's when we got Nando the Navigator and Isabel Surefire. And since we don't need any more regular Helm mats or Legend mats, because we already have the 4 we need for a 4-player game, what they did instead with these 2 large cards in the deluxe content was give us kind of an oddball pairing where there's just 2 different solo captains on each side of this one and 2 different solo Legend mats on each side of this one. So the new captain card for solo gives you Henry Kidd, just kind of a regular solo captain, and Ruthless, so just a regular solo legend. They do have the little symbol, though, up here to indicate that it is from the expansion, or right here. And I should note here, I think I misspoke earlier, perhaps, when it comes to these symbols for the ships around here, that's telling you which is the target if you need to do any target. It's not something they do, it's the target. When they act, it's ship line and all that good stuff. In any event, again, these are just sort of regular versions of solo enemies. But if you flip them, you have these red themed ones, and these actually use the floating fortress and the stuff from Crimson Silver. So you must be using the Crimson Silver expansion to actually be able to play with this one. But we have Bloody and Red Mary. Bloody Red Mary. But you can easily see here why, right? Little Crimson Silver symbols, floating fortress symbols, and so on. Of course, you need to play that with the little mini expansion. But it's a cool little mini expansion. It doesn't add a ton to the game, but some nice varieties, some new mechanisms. It's nice to have a functional mini expansion that does its own thing rather than just being more of the same. Though more of the same is certainly welcome at times. That brings us to the expansion, Curse of Amdiak. And now they've started to provide these expansions in what we've actually already seen for Tiny Epic Dungeons when I kind of jumped ahead a long time ago, where they're actually in these sort of half-height boxes. So the same dimensions, length and width-wise, but half the height, essentially, of the regular box to fit more stuff nice and snugly. So it's not a full-size box like with, say, Tiny Epic Galaxies, but it's also not one of those weird paper boxes like we saw for Tiny Epic Tactics. So that was a special case with just the nature of the expansion. Anyway, we have Tiny Epic Pirates, Curse of Amdiak, Gamelin Games, a ghostly expansion for Tiny Epic Pirates by Scott Almes. Long Edge here, Gamelin, the title again, game expansion, not a standalone game. Same thing here. Curse of Amdiak, Curse of Amdiak, so no vertical side here, both horizontal. And the back is going to give us our content again, sleeve recommendations, QR code, UPC, gambling games, some component images and whatnot. A reminder, it is an add-on game expansion, not standalone, requires base game, Tiny Epic Pirates. We have our credits, website, legalese, and finally, about it. Every sea dog has heard the legend of the ghost pirate Amdiak, whether it be a drunken tale in a port tavern or from the scurvy lips of a weathered deckhand. The ghost ship and its cursed treasure is a sea tale no more. In a risky maneuver, you have stolen a piece of Amdiak's treasure, and now he and his terrible ship have risen from the icy depths to reclaim it. But avast, as the old legend goes, Amdiak's remains in sealed urns be, bury in damned soil, set his cursed soul free. And yeah, I'm figuring it's not damned, it's damned because, it's this era. You gotta go for the Shakespearean kind of pronunciation, right? And by the way, while the edges of the bottom have no art or advertisements or anything, and it's just black on the inside, like MDX heart, you've got interior printing on the expansion too. So that same 2mm thickness and that same interior artwork with the spot UVs. So those previously mentioned upgrades to the core box also applied to the expansion. We have our rule book here, and for size comparison, there's your regular rule book. So it's relatively small, not just in length, but also in dimensions here. Curse of Amdiak, the Ghost Pirates Code. Oh, funny, Pirates Code, Ghost Pirates Code. I see what you did there. And again, even when you're playing with the expansion, there is a dedicated solo mode. So multiplayer or solo, either way. Curse of Amdiak brings us plenty of new components here. We first have 4 new map cards. Again, same backs because they have to be shuffled together. But now you're going to make a grid that's not 4x4, but 4 tall and 5 wide. I'll just put these new ones out here on the table for us. And they all have different things that they do. We'll take a look at those symbols in a moment. You have a new resource here, Cursed Gold. So everybody actually starts with 1 regular gold. And then every ship starts preloaded, every player ship that is, with 1 booty of the ascending values depending on player count. So the first player gets the one that's worth 2 gold, second player gets the one worth 3 gold, and so on up to the 4th player. But now we have another thing, which these 12 cursed gold cubes, just these sort of clear cubes here. Everybody starts with 1 on the 2 space, and their gold would be underneath, for example. And every time you gain a cursed gold, this isn't going up, you're putting another one on the next space above it. And when your gold moves up, so do the cubes. And essentially that cursed gold acts as if it is extra gold for you. So right now, he may have 2 regular gold, but he also has 2 cursed gold, so he actually has 4 gold that he could spend. And when you bury a treasure, you can spend that cursed gold first, so you're not losing your regular gold that is tougher to earn in many cases. And you can even get to the point where this is on 13 and you still have your 2 cursed gold to actually have 15 gold that you could spend on something. And these cursed gold also tie into the new ghost ship that can actually hold 4 cubes of cursed gold. If you move onto a space with the ghost ship and it's got cursed gold on it, you steal 1 automatically. However, if it sails into your space, it will actually sail as the last ship to sail after you cross the ship line. If it sails into your space, it haunts you, and you immediately lose all of your cursed gold and get jostled, and your captain becomes cursed. And the captain changes for the rest of the game. So each regular captain, here's that Curse of Amdiak symbol, every regular captain has a haunted version. Same ones on the other side here, right? So every captain has one of these that when you start the game, you put it underneath the regular captain card, and if you lose a fight to the ghost ship, which you cannot win, so the ghost ship enters your space, steals all your cursed gold, and so on, well, you become the haunted version of that character. You notice here, though, that mechanically they're effectively the same, at least based on the card itself. You now, though, have some special abilities. When you plunder, not only do you get the booty, you also get 1 cursed gold if you choose. You can also, when you attack, when you defeat another player, you can also steal 1 cursed gold from their gold track. And when you crew up at a shipwreck, there's a different symbol here, this sort of skeleton pirate. You can crew up with skeleton crew. So there are 9 skeleton crew cards. They are basically a market of 3, just like the regular crew, and you can recruit them when you do that crew up action at a shipwreck. So we have Ernie, Lucky the Kid, Morose, Mad Sarah, Bill and Bait, Min, Thomas, Boots, and Bonnie. Notice they all have different abilities here, triggering off different things as we saw with regular crew. The maximum of 4 crew, though, still applies. And I should note, which I didn't note earlier, if by chance you ever go to crew up and you don't like any of the 3 crew on offer, you can spend 1 gold to take that row of crew and basically discard all 3 and redraw 3. And the same is true here for skeleton crew, but it is separate for each deck. So it would take 2 gold to actually do it twice. So it's 1 gold for each row, but what you're crewing up with will depend on the location. As for the crew, typically it's spending a cursed gold to do something or getting something per cursed gold, that kind of thing, just so you got some other ways to use your cursed gold. To help you remember all that, and the fact that the cursed gold that gets stolen from you when you get defeated by the ghost ship actually goes onto the ghost ship, you have this card that sits near the market, kind of with the merchant cards. It reminds you that the ghost ship sails 4th and has a speed of 2, or can move 2 spaces, and that if you're in that space, all of your cursed gold goes from you to the ghost ship, and you get jostled, hence that symbol there. I apologize if you were hearing a weird sound in the background. It just started pouring down rain as I'm recording here. Fitting in this spooky Curse of Amdiak era, I suppose. Now, playing with Curse of Amdiak does also, however, change your win condition. Not only do you need to bury all 3 of your treasures, you also must bury your Amdiak urn. What is an Amdiak urn? Well, there are 4 of them, 1 per player. In the player colors, they look like so. So how do you get these? Well, notice these special trade actions here that have a little 2 cursed gold with a slash and a picture of the urn. In these specific locations, you can do a trade action, lose 2 cursed gold, and get your urn to put on your mat, or near your mat, whatever. Then when you're in one of these burial spaces, they're kind of special, there you can bury the urn, and to do so, you must lose all of your gold, all regular and all cursed. Though interestingly, there's a loophole. If you have no gold of either type, that's fine. That still counts as losing all of it. You just lose 0 of both to do the burial. And just to make it clear, the rulebook does make clear you do not have to have a cursed captain in order to bury the urn or acquire it. The cursed captain thing just gives you those special extra abilities when you do stuff once you've encountered the ghost ship once. The expansion also introduces new tokens you can search for called Ghost Wake tokens. But as it sounds, Ghost Wake. What does that sound like? Every time the ghost ship sails, whatever card it sails from gets one of these tokens placed on it, with that symbol on the back. And then when you do a search action, you can search for either a regular search token if there's one there, or you could search for one of these. 2 of these are pretty familiar. You have 3 that give you 3 gold, 2 that give you 4 gold. All of them have the exclamation point, so they're all immediate actions. Then you have 5 of them that will give you 1 cursed gold, and then the other third of these, the other 5 out of 15, are undead mermaids. And if you reveal undead mermaids, they jostle your ship. And that's it. Now, this again is not a how to play video. There's a lot that I left out for the base game when it comes to solo play. But solo play for this game is really good. I think this is one of the best Tiny Epic games for solo play. And if you're playing with Curse of Amdiak, there's actually 2 solo play modes that are available. One of them has you playing against a regular solo pirate, just like you would in the base game. And it actually gives you a couple of new cards for that. You can now play against Rogue O'Malley as the new solo captain, And you have a new solo legend mat for Devious. And in that case, the solo pirate is just wandering around the map doing stuff like it would in the multiplayer game. However, you can also play a game where your enemy is the ghost ship, the ghost pirate as it's called. So you have on the back of Rogue O'Malley, you have Amdiak as an actual captain. And then on the back of Devious, you have Ghost Pirate. And for that mode, you would use these. Notice a lot of use of other material here related to Curse of Amdiak. Again, the solo mode, whatever of the modes you're playing with, whether you're playing with the mini expansion, just the base game, or bringing Curse of Amdiak and playing in either mode, really, really good. I am not typically a pirate game guy or a pick up and deliver type of guy, which in some respects this is with the trading and plundering and all that. And yet, I really love this game. Again, it is one of my favorite Tiny Epic games. And then for the last of the game content, we do have a crew card here that is a promo card from the Game Boy Geek YouTube channel. A Game Boy Geek symbol down here. We have Dan the Geek. When you're taking the attack action, you can reroll 1 die. He also adds an automatic 1 damage. So in that sense, he is kind of similar to Ania Bones from the Crimson Silver mini expansion, but you notice here that you don't have to worry about dice for him as you do for her. She needs actual die rolls to be able to cause hits. He just automatically gets 1. The bonus action, though, is the same. This is from the Game Boy Geek 2021 Kickstarter campaign. I would note, by the way, that later in this video, I'm going to be talking about what Tycoon Games is doing with these second editions. I don't believe any of these content creator-specific promo cards are going to be inside those second editions that will package everything else together. Talk about it soon. Just make a note that probably content creator ones like this won't be there. Just my best guess. Now, before we zoom out and look at the big mat underneath, which really doesn't have a whole lot that we can't see right now, there is some stuff here on the lower edge down here that you can't see quite yet. Let's take a look at those game mats for the individual players. Again, these are available either individually for $7 or as a bundle for $20. That bundle would come in this box. Official game mats includes formats and so on. Kind of your standard Tiny Epic box here. We're not going to look at all the details of a playmat box. We just look at the details of those game boxes here. But notice here, the dimensions if you need them, 8.75 inches by 9.75 inches or 22 by 25 centimeters. And basically what you got here is you have your space to track your gold up on the top. You have your space here that has your legend mat, sort of a printed version of the legend mat. It's the same for everybody when you're playing the multiplayer game. A space for your treasures, a space for your captain and your crew. And then basically you have a helm mat over here, a place to put your surefire tokens and some reminder icons and whatnot, your different deck assignments and repair. And then rather than having just the card that you put the little order tokens onto, you actually fit them into the little slots here. In other words, you take them, randomize them, and there you go. I have to say, if for nothing else, I really like the player mats because they keep these things from being knocked around while you're playing. Here we have the playmat, which I hope is in focus because this is way up over my head here in order for me to be able to show this whole thing. And I think I'm still cutting off the edges a little bit. But you have your playmat that, again, is very functional for this game. You'll notice here that it has spaces for your map cards, but there's actually a double set of outlines. There's these sort of brighter outlines for your typical 4x4 grid for the base game, but then these shaded ones that are a little bit darker here to lay out your 4x5 grid if you're playing with Curse of Amdiak. The logo's up there in the corner. I would note that there are no glorious victories on here, no achievements, so to speak, but they did unlock those for the print and play at $450,000 as the last stretch goal to mention here. There's a place for your token supplies for surefire tokens, ghost weight tokens if you're playing with Curse of Amdiak, Amdiak earn tokens, and cursed gold cubes, again, if you're playing with Curse of Amdiak, and the crimson silver cubes if you're playing with the crimson silver mini expansion from the deluxe version. Down here in the corner, you have a space for both of your crew decks, the regular crew deck and the 3 out in sort of a market of those, and the skeleton crew and a place for those 3. Your market card here, and a place for the ghost ship if you're playing with Curse of Amdiak. But notice here that rather than having the merchant ships underneath the market card, there's actually a space here for the deck and for the 2 merchant cards. And there's a Gamelin logo on that bottom corner that you probably can't barely see down there. Again, an extremely functional mat. I'm not sure I would play the game much without it. It is excellent. I know I've said excellent a lot in this, but I just really like this particular Tiny Epic game. It surprised me. I didn't think I was going to like this as much as I did, given the theme and the nature of the gameplay, but it just works. And I love playing this solo with Curse of Amdiak because there's a ton of stuff going on, but it's all very manageable. And finally, of course, as this is an original Tiny Epic, not a licensed one, there is an eRaptor storage box for this one. So you have your nice acrylic cover here, again with the art with some transparent parts, some not, and the Tiny Epic Pirates logo. You just pop this off as you would for any of the others. You can just kind of put your rule books there on the top, and then you have your individual component trays. So all your large cards have a tray here. You have another tray underneath for all these components rather than naming them. We did just see them, so there's your other large component tray here from the left. From the center, another component tray here. Notice that you are expected, at least the way it's laid out initially, to sort of keep your dice separate. You got your skull dice and your regular dice, but whatever. Nice space here to get your tokens out without it being too crammed so you can easily grab them. Each player then gets their own little tray to have their tokens, gold, meeples, all the other components here, including the ones from the expansion, and their ship fits in there pretty nicely. It's a little snug, but not terribly so. Not enough so you'd expect it to potentially damage the ship or anything. But there's one of those for each color. Then you have your merchant and other ship-based cards in their own tray here. Your captains, your crew of the different types. Another one here that is really just a place to put all your cubes in the bag and stick the bag somewhere, so the bag just kind of gets crammed in here. And then, properly placed, you can fit your other 3 ships in this other tray there. And then, of course, you've got, if you put it together the way that I do, the way the instructions say, you do have the logo on the front side and the left side. You have no logo on the other side or the back, so the right side or the back. Inside, nice art with the Gamelin logo. The bottom, as always, is just black. So a nice storage solution to keep all your parts easily accessible as you go. As usual. Nothing fancy to blow your mind compared to the other ones that we have seen, but I do like all of these. And there you have it, folks, a look at all the components for Tiny Epic Pirates and its expansion, Curse of Amdiak. Of course, we looked at plenty of other items to go with this one, but the reason I'm showing you these together here at the end is because Gamelin Games has been bought out by Tycoon Games. Jury's still out on how they're going to be handling new Tiny Epic games in terms of fulfillment, customer support, and all that good stuff. But if you're looking for Tiny Epic Pirates, going forward, they're releasing a second edition of Tiny Epic Pirates and other Tiny Epic games. All they're doing, though, is taking all the stuff from the deluxe version and the expansion, if there is one, combining it into a single box and changing it to a portrait orientation. So if you want to get the expansion and the base game and you want the deluxe version of the base game, you could hunt them down in the form that I showed you here. But Tycoon Games is also going to be selling a second edition that combines them all into a single box at what is probably going to wind up being a lower price point compared to what you'll find these for, unless you're finding them on the secondary market. So just be aware, the era of Gamelin Games overseeing the Tiny Epic games is over. It is now Tycoon Games, starting with finishing the fulfillment of Tiny Epic Dungeon Adventures, and with their first full-fledged game of their own, Tiny Epic Invincible. You will still be able to find games like Tiny Epic Pirates from the previous sort of iteration of the line. Just know that if you see a second edition of it, each time all that's going to be is the original material in a new box, but it is always all of the original material. And in this case, that does mean base game, deluxe content, and the expansion in a box. Everything else, still sold separately. Now, as a final word, if you are looking for content coverage for the next game in the Tiny Epic series, that is Tiny Epic Dungeons. And we've already covered that in depth here on the channel. All the different bits and pieces for the accessories, the regular game in its deluxe version with its expansion, and we even saw the Honorary Producer Premium prototype for that game. That was actually one of the first games in Tiny Epic I ever covered on the channel. So you can already find those here if you search the channel. Next time we'll be taking a look at the next one after Tiny Epic Dungeons, which is Tiny Epic Vikings. Join us then.